It was December 1944. The trees of the Ardennes stood like skeletal silhouettes beneath a sky heavy with snow. The wind was sharp and cold, slicing through the forest and pushing flakes sideways across the frozen ground. Inside a camouflage M10 Wolverine tank destroyer, buried under a net of branches and ice, Private First Class Ray Thompson peered through a fogged periscope. His breath came in shallow bursts. His gloved hands trembled, not from fear, but from the bitter cold that seeped into every inch of metal and bone. Just 800 yards away, a German armored column moved through the woods, 12 tanks in total, mostly Panzer IVs, with a single Tiger to one leading the way. Behind them rolled half-tracks packed with infantry and fuel trucks bringing up the rear. They were heading toward a critical crossroad near Bastogne, a road that, if captured, would choke off supplies and reinforcements to the 101st Airborne Division. Thompson had no orders, no permission to fire. His job was to observe and report. But what he saw through that scope told him one thing. If he didn't act, the Americans trapped in Bastogne would be cut off completely. So he made a decision. Without orders, without permission, Ray Thompson pulled the trigger. And in doing so, he rewrote the rules of engagement. 3 days earlier, inside a drafty farmhouse near the Belgian front, Thompson sat hunched over a cold metal desk as his commanding officer briefed the crew of the 702nd Tank Destroyer Battalion. "No one fires without confirmation from command," the officer said flatly. "I don't care what you see. I don't care how close they are. We do not give away our position unless ordered." The men nodded. But beneath that silence was unease. Everyone knew the Germans were moving, fast. Outside, the Battle of the Bulge was beginning. On December 16th, under cover of snow and fog, Hitler had launched his last great offensive on the Western Front, Operation Watch on the Rhine. Over 200,000 German troops, more than 1,000 tanks, and total surprise. The American lines buckled. Some units disappeared overnight. Friendly positions shifted by the hour. Confusion spread faster than gunfire. Commanders feared that one wrong move, one mistaken target, could mean friendly fire or total exposure. And so the rule was simple: wait for orders. For Thompson and his crew, that meant observation duty. They were dug in near a forest road outside the town of Noville, the northern approach to Bastogne. From the ridge, they had clear sight of the valley below, but no permission to shoot. Thompson spent days scanning the terrain, logging every tank track, every movement. Through his frosted scope, he recorded distance, wind speed, bearing, but he never fired. Once he tracked a lone Panzer for nearly an hour, perfectly exposed. Still, no orders came. It passed. And with it, his patience began to fray. Was following orders really the safest option anymore? Raymond Charles Thompson wasn't born a soldier. He grew up in the flat plains of western Kansas, a place where the wind could peel paint off a barn in winter and crack the wheat fields open in summer. His father ran a small engine repair shop. His mother taught math at the local school. Ray grew up surrounded by grease and graph paper, seeing the world in angles and calculations. As a boy, he'd measured the shadow of a grain silo to calculate its height. When other kids built slingshots, Ray was building pulley systems, testing precision, testing limits. He didn't join the Army out of a hunger for war. He joined to become an engineer. The Army offered training, pay, and a future. But in war, the future was never guaranteed. By Normandy, Thompson was 22 and already looked older. His first taste of combat came in the hedgerows, where the enemy could be 10 feet away and invisible until they opened fire. He watched friends die, burned, vaporized, torn apart. After that, Thompson stopped believing in luck, or even orders. He believed in patterns. He studied how tanks moved, how long they paused, how their turrets turned. He filled a small notebook with sketches of German armor, marking every vulnerability and blind spot. He didn't talk much. Other soldiers called him the quiet clock, because when he spoke, it was short, precise, and always on time. But his mind was more than disciplined. It was tactical. He saw the battlefield like a chessboard, and in just 3 days, that quiet, angle-obsessed gunner would change the course of a battle, and maybe save thousands of lives. The fog was thick that morning. It clung to the trees like smoke. Visibility was almost nothing. But through his periscope, Thompson saw them. a German armored column winding through the forest road like a steel serpent. At the front, the Tiger One. Behind it, 3 Panzer IVs, then half-tracks, supply trucks, fuel carriers. A textbook formation. Tight, disciplined, efficient. But the road they were on was narrow, hemmed in by steep banks and dense trees. No room to maneuver, no room to retreat. To Thompson, it wasn't just a road, it was a trap. But there was a problem. Radio contact was dead. No one else could see what he saw, and his orders were clear. Do not fire without command. But command wasn't there, and Bastogne was running out of time. Thompson realized something no manual could teach. Waiting wasn't caution anymore. Waiting was suicide. So he took a breath, adjusted his aim, and fired. The first shell tore through the forest with a roar. It didn't hit the lead tank. It hit the third. The explosion ripped the Panzer apart, blocking the road instantly. Before the echo even faded, Thompson shifted position, 5 yards left, and fired again. The second shell hit the 6th vehicle, a half-track full of infantry. It erupted in flames, bodies hurled into the trees. Then he targeted the 8th, a fuel truck. The blast that followed was apocalyptic. Flames shot skyward, smoke filled the woods, and chaos consumed the German formation. Every shot was deliberate. The 3rd, 6th, and 8th vehicles. Not random, surgical. By cutting those positions, Thompson had turned the German column into a coffin, trapped front and back, blind and burning. The Tiger tried to reverse but couldn't move. The road was blocked by wreckage and fire. Machine gunners panicked, firing blindly into the trees, convinced they were under attack by an entire American ambush. But there was no ambush. There was no unit. There was just Ray Thompson. He kept firing, moving between shots, using the terrain like a ghost. Each position angled perfectly to confuse enemy gunners. Each blast louder than the last. To the Germans, it sounded like artillery. To the Americans, it would later sound like legend. When it was over, the forest was silent again. Dozens of German vehicles smoldered in the snow. Bodies lay frozen where they fell. And the road to Bastogne remained in American hands. When German survivors were later captured, their testimonies didn't match. Some said there were 6 enemy guns, others said 8. One swore it was an entire artillery battery, but there had been only one M10 Wolverine, and one man who decided not to wait for orders. American officers couldn't believe it either. They called it reckless, disobedient, suicidal. But the evidence spoke louder than the rules. An entire German armored column destroyed by a gunner who was supposed to be silent. In the German records, the incident was later given a name, Die Geister Battery, the Ghost Battery. For 2 days, Thompson expected to be court-martialed. He filed his report in silence, ready to face punishment for breaking the rules. But when the officers at headquarters reviewed the results, no one spoke, no one reprimanded him, and no one ever mentioned it again. Ray Thompson didn't get a medal. His name never made the papers. But in the snow-covered forests of the Ardennes, he'd done something few soldiers ever could. He'd proven that sometimes victory doesn't belong to those who wait for orders. It belongs to those who know when to break them. Because in the chaos of war, one act of disobedience can save an army.